Welcome to the PROCON podcast, hosted by Paul Vogels, with expert guest interviews, case study reviews, and insightful discussion topics. The PROCON podcast leads the project controls conversation.
Welcome back, everybody. PROCON podcast with a live use case today. So I'm very excited to have you both as a guest on the use case podcast. PROCON podcast, leading the project controls conversation, and we got into contact with a mutual relationship. One of my colleagues was on the team and is now in the supervisory board, and we're having Forze Delft as a guest. Very honored to have you here. We're going to talk about what is Forze Delft, but first let me introduce you guys. Hochstenbach, cum laude Bachelor of Econometrics and Bachelor of Philosophy, and now doing a double degree as Masters in Econometrics and Philosophy. Ron, you have to explain that. Econometrics and Philosophy. How about that?
Yeah, so I started out with a main focus on econometrics in my first year, just regular one bachelor. And I'm very mathematically inclined and minded. I like the challenge it faces. But in my second year, like at the end of my first year, I felt like something was missing, sort of. I had with my friends, a lot of conversations about society and politics and stuff like that. And then I heard word of that you could add a second degree of philosophy to your studies, and it seemed like the thing for me.
Yeah.
And it didn't turn out as I expected. I thought it was more politics, but it was even better than I thought. It was actually a very abstract way of thinking about the world, which I really liked. And actually, well, it resembles mathematics and econometrics quite well, actually, the abstract way of thinking. So.
Okay. And econometrics wasn't hard enough as a single degree.
I like challenges.
Yeah,
so,
I can see that from your resume. But and cum laude econometrics tells me something about your intelligence. Your neighbor, I'm going to pronounce it hopefully very well, Gabriel Garcia. Welcome on the show. Cum laude Aerospace Engineering Bachelor, and now going for, I assume, cum laude Master of Science, of course. Aerospace, you are both studying at the University of Delft, which is actually very known about aerospace, I think. Yeah. Can you tell me about your motivation to go into aerospace engineering?
Yeah, so I actually moved to the Netherlands for it. From Spain.
Spain, yeah. Okay.
I was doing there my whole high school. And I moved for the aerospace engineering bachelor in particular.
Yeah.
And as Ron said as well, it was mainly the challenge. So it sounded like something cool, but more than that, it's not that I had a specific affinity to airplanes or to rockets, etc. It was more just I wanted to do something very different for me, and that was challenging, and I wanted to move to a different country and experience that. So I ended up in Delft, and I really loved it.
Yeah. And what's more challenging, moving to the Netherlands or going into aerospace engineering?
I would say definitely aerospace engineering. Moving to the Netherlands was great.
Yeah. Well, the sun is shining now, so
that helps.
Yeah, that helps a lot. That helps a lot. Okay. Well, welcome, guys, on this show. We're going to talk about the Forze Delft. You are the project manager in the Forze Delft. You are the business and finance manager in the Forze Delft project. And actually, let us start with a very short movie, 18 seconds. You have seen it 1,000 of times, but for me, it resembles very much this conversation in a very clear way. One goal, win a GT. And in the introduction, you said, well, it's a very simple goal. We just want to win a GT against petrol-powered racing cars. Maybe to you, Gabriel, can you tell me something about what makes a hydrogen electric racing car so much different than a petrol-powered car?
Yeah, for sure. The whole powertrain is completely different from what you're used to. And I think really the main difference is, of course, that we do it in a sustainable way, in a green way. But more going to the technical part of it, we use an electric drivetrain, so you get all the benefits of what you have heard in the news of all the Porsche Taycans and Teslas being extremely fast off the line, very high torques. But at the same time, you also get the benefits of hydrogen and the long range that comes with it. So this is really the perfect combination for us to go more towards endurance racing and towards longer races that we can quickly refuel in thanks to our hydrogen, but we can also be really quick thanks to our electric motors.
Yeah, because hydrogen is a liquid to put it in, or how is it? Is it
we use
recharged?
it in gaseous form?
Yeah, okay.
And we use the standards that the industry, automotive industry uses.
Yeah.
So we use 700 bar tanks of hydrogen, and we have in the latest car we have 4 of these tanks.
4 of these things. Okay, so you can do like a Le Mans. I think is one of the most famous endurance races. But because it's electrical powertrain like a Tesla, you also have the acceleration part, which you don't get by gasoline, for example.
Yeah, so that's something for sure to look into for the future. We're now looking at a little bit less ambitious than Le Mans.
Yeah.
But it's probably where the industry will go. So we're really excited to see where we can take it.
Yeah, okay. And you told me something about, hey, it's environmental friendly.
Yeah.
I looked at your website. There are a couple of ways, and I think one of the resemblance or hesitations with hydrogen. How do you make hydrogen? Because that can be done in a blue or a green or a gray way.
Yeah.
If I look at your website, what's your philosophy on that as a team?
Yeah, we are definitely pushing for making this a sustainable technology. So going towards the green hydrogen side of it. For us, it's mostly about showing what the technology can do so that the bigger players can come in and really make a big change in terms of the production of the hydrogen itself.
Yeah. And then, is it achievable? So one goal to win a GT. And I think also from a business point of view or a financial point of view, everybody says, well, if you push as much money in it as you can, then everything, I see people, even Dutch people, fly to the space nowadays, thanks to Mr. Bezos. But he has probably a little bit bigger budget than you guys. Is it also a valid business case to do this? Are you the right team to be the pilots for enabling hydrogen in normal cars? Because that's what you hear. Formula One is inventing things which you now see in your standard car. Does that apply a bit also to the Forze Delft team?
Yeah, I think actually it does. Like we as students, we are the future, everyone always tells. So we as students now try to show the world what the future is. So hydrogen right now isn't that big yet, especially not in automotive. Like electric cars are on the rise very fast, but hydrogen cars not yet. And we want to show that it is feasible. So we want to reach a broad audience and also companies. And like people have a lot of questions like, is it reliable? Is it feasible? Is it dangerous? And what we do, we build a car that can run on a circuit at 300 kilometers an hour. Yeah. And if we can do that, you can drive to your work with it. That's what we try to show.
I think we also have the possibility to take more chances than bigger companies do. So try things that are maybe more innovative and that for someone in a conventional company would be more adverse to taking that risk, but we can because we are students and.
Learning is your passion at the university, of course. But it's I'll come to the real scheduling and project management challenges later. But I want to go into the student part. So yes, it's linked to the university, but you were telling, the students are doing this for a learning experience, for fun, etc. What's the role of the university in this?
So we're not actually officially affiliated with the TU Delft anymore.
No.
So the role of the TU Delft is that they educate our team actually. So we're all TU Delft students, about 27 full-time and like 35 part-time now. And all of them, except me, have studied at TU Delft. So they educate us and they've helped us grow the past 14 years. They still help us in some ways.
Did they start this initiative? Or facilitate this initiative?
Facilitate, yes. Yeah. So there's a couple of projects like ours at the TU Delft, actually. A lot of people have heard of the Fall Solar team. There's a Hyperloop team, Formula Student teams. A couple of hydrogen teams coming up now as well, EcoRunner and Hydromotion.
Competitors?
Well, not in the same way. Like EcoRunner shows more the city applications of a hydrogen car, so they run at efficiency. That's their aim. And Hydromotion builds a boat.
Okay.
So that's something that we are quite excited for as well, because we are doing this for 14 years already. But now seeing that people are building boats, it's actually a project they're also building a hydrogen plane.
Yep.
That shows that we're on the right track, I think.
Yes, and do you peer up with those teams, because your goal is to drive as fast as possible in this track. The EcoRunner wants to drive as efficiently as possible. But I think they will use same techniques in some way. Do you team up with those peers? Or just in the bar?
Now a little bit in between. So we're with, for example, Hydromotion, we're in the same hall. There's meetings between our team managers. So we help each other wherever we can. Like we're all students in the same way after our bachelor's building a cool tech project. In that way, we're related and help each other. That's how we cooperate, basically. Yeah.
And from a technical part, do you borrow innovation from each other, or talk about what would be your angle on this?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's mostly because we were in the same hall, so that was actually quite easy. Our project was a bit more complex. We have a longer history working with hydrogen.
Yep.
So something that we've also helped quite a bit is with our lessons learned, and in topics like, for example, safety, with helping other teams get their first vehicles going. So definitely something for us great to have more people working with hydrogen as well.
Yeah. Okay. So really cool project. I think you're on the right way. If you look at the business environment, all kind of companies are looking into hydrogen. Our earth gas companies, the pipelines, etc., are making a preparation to put hydrogen into the same loops as where the gas was. We are going away from oil-based gases and maybe into hydrogen gases. So I think we are on the right track. People are investigating it. I think you make a correct assumption. Your goal is to learn. The goal of the company is to also earn money at the end, so they can't afford real big risks. If you look into the project, so there's a real strong goal. We want to win a GT race, which is not easy. I think it's not a very short-term goal. How do you come from this goal? I want to win the GT race into a project management plan or a schedule, or what are we going to do? Because there's a lot of I always call it, there's a lot of eureka moments you have to break into, because you need to invent a lot of things, and invention is not always about making new things, but also making new applications for existing applications in a new way. Finding that one. How do you come from that goal to a lap time or a car or a wheel?
Yeah, so this started already last year. So Ron and I are part of Team 14, but Team 13 actually already started this project, the Forze 9 project.
Yeah.
And the way they started this, they set themselves this ambitious goal, and we already had a car that was running at the lower classes. So really the starting point was to understand what in this car is going to still be able to just carry it over, and where do we need to really reinvent the wheel, as you said. And once we knew that, we started looking at which big partners and industry-leading technology can we use towards that goal. And I think these were really the first moments where you started to see what the car was going to shape like.
Yep.
And once we managed to secure this big components, and I'm talking about the fuel cell itself, and I'm talking about some of the when we decided what type of battery we would use and how many tanks we would use, and from there things get quite a bit more detailed because all the big uncertainties start clearing up, and I think we went into a more conventional project management from there on, where we looked a lot at previous teams and what experience they had assembling components together.
Yep.
And then we basically start looking at, what is different in our current system. And an example of this would be our balance of plant. So that's how we bring the hydrogen from the tanks to actually electricity that we can use.
Yep.
And in our newest car, we decided to go for 2 balance of plant instead of 1. So we actually have 2 fuel cells instead of 1 in the previous car. And the reason was that we can bring, of course, much more power, but also that we reduce engineering risk. So we went into the plan now is we are going to build a car with 1 balance of plant first, test that, and then build the second one. And that's completely that's a new approach in how Forze projects were run in the past.
Yep.
And as you said, with new challenges that come with it.
Yep.
I don't know from a finance side if this was.
It also helps you that you can build a car iteratively. So you also have your liquidity is more manageable. So you don't have to, assuming that twice the power fuel cell will be twice as expensive.
No.
Now we build or buy with quite some time in between. We buy 2 separate fuel cells. So liquidity-wise, it's also more manageable.
Yeah, because you are your own project or own project team. You need to, and it's a Dutch verb I'm going to use, hold up your own pants on a financial. You are P&L responsible for this. If you look at the website, you have a lot of big players in the market who are helping you. I think, and I know for sure, not just financially, but also from a value or an engineering point of view. You are making it very easy. Yeah? We run some lower classes, some easier classes, and we're just gonna change some small things, and now we can drive fast around the track. I think it's more difficult than that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
with GT classes, I'm kind of a car freak myself as well. I know the bigger the class, the bigger the risk, the bigger financial input you have. So you're asking something from your students, from an engineering point of view, from an innovative point of view, but also from a business and a financial and a risk point of view to say, well, you have this nice shirt with some real big names in aerospace, in oil, in whatever. We're now going to play with the big boys. So can you make your bag of money a little bit bigger, please? I think it's more than that. So how can you convince, and I think as a project manager and a finance manager, you need to be confident to say, okay, now we are ready for the big challenges. We engineered it in our minds, in our calculations. Now we need X, Y, and Z from you guys. And one of them is financial commitment, but also I think some parts and some knowledge maybe even. How's that from a business and a financial point of view?
Yeah, actually, you summed it up pretty well. We get either like financial support, but also expertise support and parts.
Yeah.
So, for example, as Gabriel already mentioned, the fuel cell we get supplied by Elringklinger, which is one of the biggest fuel cell companies in Europe, and they supply us really with their top-notch prototype components.
Yeah. But do they think along, or do you call them, say, well, Mr. Partner, we need 2 bigger cells, more optimal cells, and they just look in the catalog and say, oh, you need prototype number A. It's not in the price of the shed, but here you have it. Or I think it's more than that.
It's definitely more than that, yeah. So, also they are quite interested in us as well, because they haven't seen their fuel cell being driven around at 300 kilometers an hour. So the use cases are very different. Like you get vibrations and you get like all kind of forces acting on the fuel cell. They don't really know about that yet. Yeah. So they are very eager to hear from us as well. Yeah. Like why, like how we experience using their project, their product. Yeah. Are there mechanics in your building environment looking at are they on the track in this? If you look Formula 1, there's also a whole computer screen with 1,200 people. I always think, are they involved? Are they looking at you? Are they helping? Knowledge on that? Gabriel knows a bit more about this than I do, but
usually during the actual track test or during the actual race day, that would be our team fully in control of what's happening. But we definitely go back to headquarters the day after, and what we found out at those tests or those races, we definitely discuss with them. And I think that's part of why our collaboration is successful, is because we managed to have this feedback loops with them and give them the information they want in exchange for the products that we can use.
Yeah. Okay. So you already had this running car performing. Was it competitive in the lower classes? Did it win?
Absolutely. They finished second in the Supercar Challenge.
Who finished first? A Porsche.
It was lower class. I think.
Yeah, it was a sports class.
Sports class, okay.
But another petrol-powered car.
A petrol-powered car. So you were the best hydrogen car in that round, and second is very, very good. So you had this running. You're optimizing, innovating, etc. Was it? You said, well, it's like a standard project management plan or project management cycle. Was it from a project management point of view that easy or that logical to do it this way?
Definitely not easy, because you mentioned that we optimize it, but actually we don't really we don't have that much to optimize, because almost everything we have to rethink.
Yep. Okay.
It's more that we because we're students and every year there's a new team. You definitely want to use the lessons learned before, but then you actually use those lessons to make your own solution.
Yep.
So from a project management perspective, I think one of the big challenges was definitely putting the time in to actually learn from the previous teams, which I think is quite unique to our project. And another one is to, because you are trying something new almost every week, sometimes things work out great and the team has a big high, but sometimes testing just doesn't go as you planned.
No.
And you still need to manage to lead the team in those situations. And I think for us, those iterations are faster than a normal project, I would say.
Well, in our introduction, we discussed this. Your team, 27 full-time, 45 part-time, also 70 people more or less running this show, get changed every single year. So this team will sign off in a couple of weeks. The next team will start in probably after holiday. So from a resource point of view, if you talk to a project manager in normal projects, so not student project, innovative projects, say, well, you are going to build this machine who can beat the top notch in GT class, but every single year your complete crew gets changed.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to say, well, I want to be the project manager of that. So that's a heck of a problem.
Definitely. It's something you as a project manager are also new.
Yeah.
That's also you also need to learn how to deal with that. And I think that from the experiences we've had, we've seen that at the beginning, getting up to speed does take longer.
Yep.
And the progress goes slower in the first weeks, etc. But once you get up to speed, I think that's the great thing about having people that are really motivated and basically doing this on a voluntary basis. Once you get up to speed, you're really constant at that really high productivity.
Is it that hockey stick effect where you see, well, if we survive the first couple of weeks, get into traction, then the motivation, the drive, the people. We always talk in the PROCON podcast about people, processes, and tools.
Yeah.
Is it the people who make this show running for that year?
Absolutely. It's 100% the people. That's why onboarding is so important, why recruitment for us is so important. You get the right people, and once they get running, that's when you do the incredible things that you can do.
Well, you mentioned that it's on a voluntary basis. We discussed this. You need to be a student. You don't get money for it. You don't get points for it. You're not getting hours compensated for it. It's a learning experience. That sounds really cool. Yeah. Learning experiences. But it also takes some sort of commitment. It's the paradigm between being involved or being committed. well, it's not something where you shouldn't take it easy. I think that's an understatement. But how do you get the right people with the right drive? Because I think from a business point of view, your crew can resign with, well, not even a stroke of a pen because they didn't sign anything. It's a real high risk. But as you mentioned, nobody quitted the last 14 years significantly. So from a business point of view, well, there is no. So we have a voluntary team of 70 people playing with hydrogen.
Yeah, and on the other hand, like no one quit it. But this year we had 2 free part-timers who halfway through the year said, "Well, can I be full-time?"
Yeah.
So
so you need to scare them off instead of recruit them.
We welcome them.
Yeah.
So we can always use more hands, and it shows that everyone energizes each other as well, because we all committed to like an insanely ambitious goal. As a bunch of students build a car that can run at these speeds from scratch. Yeah. And then we see everyone's work, and if one person is very hyped about something they achieved, part they made, or they share the hype, and everyone's like, "Wow, that's really great," and it motivates you to do the same. Yeah. So, for example, literally today, the bodywork molds are coming in, and not a second thought. Like on Saturday, I'm there sending them to get them ready. Yeah. So,
and is it because of this energetic team, or is everybody also a car fanatic, or is it also about the team experience you get?
Yeah, I would say it's more about team experience than being a car fanatic. But I also think it's something that, as Ron said, this team experience you really need to build from a management perspective as well. Yeah. And it's something that along this year we've also struggled with from a management perspective. So I remember, for example, when we were during a certain phase where we were really focused on the design part, and we weren't getting that much physical, let's say, reward in terms of working hands-on on something or actually receiving parts. That was quite a difficult few weeks for the team because they were working so hard and putting the hours, but at the end of the day, they didn't see the reward immediately there. It was something always to look for in the future. Yeah. So you always, for example, from a project management perspective, those few weeks, I started prioritizing tasks that maybe were not on the critical path, but that I knew could provide some type of shorter term reward just to keep the motivation high. Yep. And I think that's something that has helped us.
So you plan your celebration moments.
Exactly. And really try to, those celebration moments, try to make them something the team is proud of. Yeah. When we bought some champagne bottles to celebrate some components coming in. Yeah. Just try to make it something that people actually enjoy as well.
To get the motivation, to get the momentum running, and to celebrate with your peers, to say, well, it's not on the critical path right now, but we need to celebrate it because we want to keep this momentum running. Yeah. Okay, that's very interesting. You said, well, in a certain phase of the project, did Corona have an impact on that as well? Because, well, I don't think you were with 70 people sending 6 months ago when everybody was in lockdown. Was that an impact on this energy as well? Or how did you cope with all these? Because you need to learn digitally. You can send digitally, but how was that?
We were a bit lucky that the timing was in where we were doing the more design part of the work. So, but in terms of the personal relationships within the team, we had to basically try different things. We started working online a lot on servers that we could be together. Yep. But we also tried to get some more socialization going, even though it was within Corona measures. Yep. Whether it helped, whether at the end it affected or not our final year progress, I would say it probably did. But I don't know how you see it.
We are where we are right now. So it is, it worked out sort of. Yeah. But it was still good to see. Like, luckily, we started out the first couple of months last summer working together. Otherwise, it would have been really difficult to get a team hype going. Yeah. But as Gabriel mentioned, like for me personally, for example, we had these servers, and like you're sitting in your own room all day, and during the day you have meetings, you talk to each other. But in the evening, that's when, for example, I do bookkeeping in the evening, because then I don't get disturbed. But what I really liked is to go hop onto the server, and we had 2 SimCon guys that were chatting to each other. And there was I had this whole theme of like a couple of weeks after each other. Every evening I went to Discord. The 2 guys were talking about their models, and I looked at their screen and I saw like Wikipedia pages full of formulas, and they were chatting about that. And I had some music on. I listened to them. Didn't talk to them. I just listened to them, knew they were there. And it motivated me to do my bookkeeping well. Yeah. And we have a lot of experiences like that. You can listen to music together, and you don't need to be a direct colleague. I could sit in with the SimCon guys or with the Aero guys, or just listening into each other, chatting, and on the same time doing your work. So
but it helped. I think for sure. What I hear you say, it helped. We could start physically with each other. We've seen each other. We celebrated that. We started the first couple of the hockey stick dip. We faced together, and then you could go into the digital learning curve more easy. I know you went remotely on our Primanet Academy, and your previous teams were trained here in the academy as well. What was the hardest part for the students to learn on building a project? Because if you go to the University of Delft or another university and study aerospace engineering or econometrics, I think you're analytically very strong. You like to engineer, so that's maybe it's hard to think about, but you like it very much. What was the hardest part on this project to learn?
Yeah. I think in terms of setting the project up, the hardest part was that you are forced to do it at the same time as you are just getting onboarded on the actual project and what it is and how the different shareholders of the project work. So as you go, you're basically learning more and more information and constantly updating your project structure and your project plan. Yep. So I think that was probably the hardest part. And something also different is that from a management perspective, we also don't have management experience before. I did aerospace engineering and run the econometrics. So I think you have to be quite flexible with the methods, the management methods that you use. So I think if I look at how I work with the engineers now and how I make them responsible for their tasks and how I make them plan the short term of their own projects themselves, that's something that 8 months ago was completely different. And just through being flexible with your own structure, we got to something that now actually works.
Yep. And how was the handover from the previous team? Are you continuing what they finished and then turning it to your hand, or is there an actual handover from the last team, or is it a couple of days, or how does that work?
No, it's an actual handover. So you do it a bit part-time from the month of, I think, April until the summer. Yep. And in August, you actually spend 2 weeks, both teams in the same place, or in our offices, working together. And that's where the real handover happens. So I think we put a lot of emphasis on this onboarding. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there, but Ron, you were there the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, so it's like Gabriel said already, we recruit as early as possible, so we can start teaching people like from April onwards already, and then as they finish their bachelors, like they start being taken into like in the business team, for example. It's like you don't teach actually how to build a part or something. It's a different type of skill. But what we do is we, as early as possible, try to take our successors to meetings that we have. So when I'm talking to a sponsor or to insurers or to the bank, for example, to our accountants, I say as early as possible to my successor, like, jump along, and I take 30 minutes to explain, okay, this next meeting is with this person, we're going to talk about this and this, and that's how we teach. And then it's coming up like not next week but the week after, then we're going to sit in parallel for 2 weeks, and we first start off with a bunch of trainings like teamwork training, time management training, also mental health training, stuff like that. We do. So they're really ready to start. Well, are you ever ready? And then they start working the second week. Hopefully they do their work while we sit next to them. Like first week, very, very broadly said, like, we do our work while they watch us. And then second week, hopefully, they do their work while we watch them.
You are the backup.
Yeah. And then in the weeks after, it's not like we are going to go to say like, okay, guys, good luck. And I'll see you maybe in 5 years at a reunion. It's like, especially first couple of weeks, couple of months, we're going to come back very often saying like, well, I would do it this way. Or have you looked at this?
Yeah.
So it's quite a smooth and long transition period.
Yeah. Is it hard to part because you worked for a year on something? You're not gonna see of course you're gonna see the finish line, but you don't see the last mile probably. The last year. You said the race is next year summer, so you miss all the fun for 1 year. Is it hard to let go?
Well, I think first 1 or 2 weeks of well-deserved holiday, and then it's going to be hard indeed.
Yeah, and then a couple of days crying, and then
So it's of course it's always difficult. No, I don't really think it's hard. It's more of a pride, I'd say, to see what they're working on because we started it, of course.
Yeah,
and like the team before us as well, like they saw even less of their design, but we are building it right now, and the next team is going to race it.
Yeah.
But they're also like, not a day goes by without a couple of our predecessors coming by to the office, being very proud of what we do.
Yeah.
Still seeing stuff. So, it's hard a bit, but we're still part of the team also next year.
Yes. Is it from a project management? You make me think about something. Do you plan these years? Are they affecting your project management plan? Because you have to, it's like a hockey curve going down, a new hockey curve going down. It's like a yearly cycle from, let's say August to August. Does that affect your project rhythm or your project phases or stage gauge or in that way?
For sure. That's actually something we learned when we did the academy here. To really look at the project as one project and not really as a year. And then how the year affects us is, as I said, because of the hockey stick, we need to account for a slower progress the first months of the new team. And another way it affects in is that when you're making your management plan for the whole project, you don't know what type of people or how many people the next team will have. You can put some requirements for it and say, I see a lot of work in the electronics department, so I will try to recruit a lot of electronics people. You can put requirements, but you never know exactly how much you're going to get out of it. So I think that's one of the challenges of when you actually have your team secured, you need to revise your planning and see which maybe sub-projects you need to drop because you didn't get enough people, or the other way around, what improvements could you make because you did get some people. And one other interesting thing about this changing of the team, these 2 weeks that Ron was talking about, I'm already struggling to prioritize a team that is basically in its groove, let's say. It's really at its max performance right now. So how am I going to spend their time in these 2 weeks when they also need to put as much effort as possible into onboarding the new team, which is something that, of course, you only get results in the long term. So that's going to be a fun challenge, I already imagine. So
you can actually, if you look at your progress charts, you can see without the months, you could see, okay, now I'm in my hockey stick period, probably September. All these new guys and probably June, July, August, everybody is peaking in its performance. And you have to, probably pull away all the work because they need to onboard the new talents.
I think you can balance it, but definitely you need to spend some time on that for sure.
So we talked, if we're going back to project management, we talked about finance, which is also a challenge, I think, because if I'm correctly, TU Delft doesn't facilitate anymore financially or facilitating wise. So you have to get the money out of the sponsors. Are they open, or can you use sponsors anytime? Or are people happy to contribute to this?
Definitely. We see a lot of people being very excited about our project, both personally and from a business perspective. So it was a bit different for our year, because normally where we get our most sponsors in is when we go to a lot of events. Like under normal operations, we have like 1 or 2 events or fairs or whatever where we are per week, and there we speak to a lot of people, tell them about our project, they get hyped, and we set up meetings and we see where we can cooperate.
Yep.
This year was a bit differently. We had to actively look for sponsors.
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, people are, when they hear about us, they are very hyped about us as people, but also us as project. And there's always some kind of match to be found in what we do, because we're like, we build a hydrogen race car, but we have a very broad array of activities that we do, and there's always a match to be found with almost any company.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So financially, you're a healthy organization. You're a healthy project. Time-wise, well, we talked about it. It's achievable. It's not easy, but it's achievable. There's a clear end goal. Now, engineering, we talked about resources. Thank God, everybody is very enthusiastic, but a new team every year is quite of a challenge. Any other risks or influences that you see into your playing field? Are there any environmental influences or legal or jurisdiction? Because some students playing with hydrogen, well, not everybody is maybe happy about that. What are there any other influences on this project?
Yeah, for sure. Like, of course, we work with hydrogen in a very cautious way. Of course. So for example, something, as you mentioned, we use a lot of components that whenever they are safety critical, we use components that either are used in the automotive industry or it's a partner that has years and years of experience and certificates to work with hydrogen, etc. So that's one of them, working with our partners that do all this safety critical stuff.
Yeah.
I think also important that the racing aspect of it. Our car is completely different from what a normal race organizer is used to have. So we also, I think that's also something we need to take into account.
In what way is that? Because I saw the pink racing car from last year. It looks different because it has really strong curves on the side, very high curves on the side. That's different than you mentioned the Porsche Taycan in that movie as well. That's very slick and it's very aerodynamic. What makes it different besides the fuel powering it? But what makes it very different? Because at the end it's a car, 4 wheels, a steering and a roof.
For the newest car, what makes it different is we're going to use four wheel drive.
Yes.
Not only rear wheel drive. Which is usually the norm in most race cars.
Yeah.
It also makes it different, of course. Our safety structures are, you need to take into account that you have tanks with you and they need to be properly protected.
Yeah.
But
different than a petrol tank? Because it's so much...
well, the certification is different.
Yeah.
Both, of course, need to be protected. So the structure around that probably similar. I wouldn't know. But definitely where you get the tanks is different.
Yeah.
But I would say something that's quite different is something that we're working on now and also for future years is the refueling part of it.
Yeah.
So for now we refuel wherever any other hydrogen car, road car refuels. But there's no such infrastructure at racetracks yet.
Yeah.
So that's something that in the future could be very interesting for us. If we can actually refuel at a track or even during the actual race.
Yep.
So something to look forward to.
But that's also, you need to invent your infrastructure, maybe even your tooling. You don't need to invent the car alone. Mm-hmm. You need to invent the whole, everything.
And if you don't invent it, you need to make sure to, basically talk to the right people and make the right business case for other partners to do that work.
Will there at the end, so you're racing against petrol powered cars at the same circuits as a normal circuit. Will there be a new class? Is there a hydrogen class and a petrol class, or is it just a racing class?
That's the fun part of it. That it was so innovative, our car, that it actually. We were building it before there were even concrete regulations on hydrogen-powered vehicles. So we followed all the road regulations in terms of safety, but when it came in terms of just racing aspects, there was no such thing as regulations for us.
Yeah.
So I think we are in this moment where we're building the new car, and at the same time the regulations are coming up.
Yeah.
So I may also challenge in terms of project management, because it could be that in the future the FIA, after months of study, decides to change something in the regulations for hydrogen cars.
Yeah.
Because they're so new, and then we need to implement it in our car. I think that's very unlikely for our current goals, but so I'm quite confident that our current car will have no issues like this. But for future projects, definitely something to keep in mind.
Are the petrol-powered car, are they a match for your new Forze car? Or is because of the hydrogen or because of you guys inventing it, you will be first and then all nothing and then the rest? Or
I think we'll have to see. It's an ambitious goal.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say it's easy at all. But yeah, that's what we designed it for, to compete against them, to get the same amount of performance. And if we can manage to really get our advantages, make the most out of them, like this high acceleration out of the corners, etc. That's where the
because I was watching the movie where you compare against this Porsche Taycan. You are 800 kilos less on weight, but 100 kilowatt performance more. So and I'm not a cum laude econometrics, but in my calculation, this is going to be easy peasy.
No, that's not really how it works. There's a lot more factors playing in as well with how we control the use of our hydrogen and how much we're actually using. Also very dependent on the circuit we go in. And one disadvantage of our car is that we require much more cooling than a normal car. That's also why you said that there was this big side pod in the old car. Because we get less aero because we need more cooling. So I actually think it's going to be really fun, because these things make it
you win on the performance side, but it has a downside.
Definitely, So that's what it makes it a level playing field. And so I think it's going to be we'll have to see.
Fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Processes, we talked about crazy process, every year new team. We talked about tools. You're making the best tool there is to race a car. One question, nothing to do with your project, nothing to do. Who's going to drive that car? Is it the student? Because then,
right, or was I?
Are we going to decide it here? Because then I need to get a coin. But will it be somebody from the team, or is there going to be a professional race driver?
Well, we are lucky to have a couple of old-timers, we call them, alumni, that are quite professional racing drivers.
32, 33 years old.
Yeah,
probably.
So I think there were team members like 10 years ago or something. And we have 3 of them, Leo van der Eyck, Jan Bot and Kevin Schreiber. And they were team members before. And they're very, very good drivers. One of them works for Aerospace Racing, Leo does. And Jan and Kevin started a hydrogen startup actually out of Forze. So they're very much involved in racing, in hydrogen, and excellent drivers, I think.
Yeah.
They also know a lot about the project, which is really useful when you need to make the more nitty-gritty decisions about the car and about the logistics, etc. They really have some inside view.
And they still are looking side by side with you at the moment, because they are going to drive it. They want to know something about it.
They sit in the simulator, they give feedback. And like Gabriel mentioned, it's quite nice. If we had an external driver that we call a couple of times a year, can you drive the car? And doesn't know how we work, it's going to be very difficult. But they know, because they've been part of the team, they know that if we have a test tomorrow and I give feedback now that the suspension is too stiff or something, they know how we work. They know, call in 5 people, arrange some pizza and fix it. They know how we do it. So that's very nice.
Does it drive differently? Could Max Verstappen drive this car?
I haven't driven it, so I wouldn't know. I'm pretty sure it drives differently. I'm guessing that also the weight balance is quite different because of our tanks. But I wouldn't know.
I've heard Leo say that it's very weird to not have audio feedback, because normally in a petrol powered car you hear when you hit the gas, you hear the engine revving and get a lot of audio feedback. He says it's very weird to not hear that.
But that's the same what you hear from the first Tesla drivers.
They say it drives almost the same as an electric car.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned spin-off. Is it a goal or a side goal, etc.? You know, Lightyear got started and is very. I've been to Lightyear because it's actually around my corner of my house in Helmond. So I've been there a couple of times. It's a spin-off of the Solar Challenge at the end from the TU Eindhoven. Are there spin-offs from Forze, or will there be spin-offs from Forze or from the Eco Runners, etc.? Is that one of the benefits or side goals?
Well, not really a stated goal, but our main goal is to inspire people to use hydrogen. Yeah. So any spin-offs are welcome. So as I mentioned, like Jan and Kevin are part of SEP Solutions, and they consult and build hydrogen powertrains for other companies. So
for cars or for different?
All different types of applications. I heard them talking about watertaxis in Rotterdam, some terminal vehicles in the harbor of Rotterdam. So that's what they do. And that's also one of the, we promote hydrogen not only by reaching the news or inspiring our partners, but every year we have a group of 70 people that, because they work at Forze, and we are some of the brightest people of the TU Delft, every year we have a batch of 70 students who are fully convinced that hydrogen is the future. And they spread out all over the world, actually, in their companies. And that philosophy, thinking that hydrogen is the future, they bring that to whatever company they're going to work at.
These are the hydrogen ambassadors of the world.
Actually, And maybe, it's difficult to quantify, but maybe that's actually the best promo we're doing for hydrogen. By educating every year a batch of 70 students that hydrogen is the future.
Let's hope for that hockey stick effect as well. Let's hope for that. As I mentioned in the introduction, probably after a couple of discussions, I need to tell you, guys, we can talk about this for hours because it's a really cool project. You're really bright and really cool people to talk to. But we try always to get this into the 45, 50 minutes because it's a podcast at the end and we want to listen it while we drive home, for example, or in the middle of the night or the evening. So we need to wrap up. Ron, thank you very much for the introduction, for the contribution to this podcast. I am really looking forward to the race. Probably you will be there. I don't know if it's an open race, but I'm inspired to go to it at least. And okay, that's really great. Gabriel, thank you very much as well. Good luck with your studies, and seeing the first result, I am quite confident that will work out. Good luck with the handovers. You're in the middle of it, and the recuperation of departing the team. Everybody at home, at work, in the car, thank you for listening to the PROCON podcast. If you want to see this, look at the proconpodcast.com website where you can see us. Also there you can subscribe to Apple, Spotify, Google, etc. If you want to listen or tune into this conversation, we as the PROCON podcast team are very enthusiastic about it. Hopefully you are as well, and we try to lead the project controls conversation. So hopefully until the next time, and if you have any tips or tricks, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the PROCON podcast. To listen and watch more episodes, you can subscribe and access the resources mentioned in this episode by visiting proconpodcast.com. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode, where we will continue to lead the project controls conversation. The PROCON podcast and the associated resources is published under copyright to Premoned. All rights reserved, no reproduction of this content is permitted.